in overtime, and the hip-hop community watched to see what would happen next. One seasoned artist stated in a radio interview, "This is heartbreak, not beef," but just when everything seemed to be at its lowest, a surprise phone call was placed. One that no one had expected and that would change everything moving forward. As the days passed and everyone awaited it, tensions continued. Behind the scenes, Jim Jones and Cameron were fighting over more than just a fragrance. They were dealing with the consequences of their own transgressions, which had an impact on fans, the media, and even their attire. Despite differing views on what had happened, nobody was entirely sure what Dipset's future held. Was the harm already done, or could they save what was left of their heritage? Cameron, who is renowned for his composed demeanor, was beyond repair. Following the tragedy, his usually humorous and cryptic social media accounts had gone silent. Uncomfortably silent fans, particularly those who had supported him for years, were starting to worry since they had never witnessed Cameron behave in this way before. Usually, he would downplay a situation to make tragedy humorous, but this time, there was no comedy in his posts. Although Jim Jones was more vocal on Twitter, he wasn't even posting this. His silence was more powerful than words, and he was full of statements apologizing to supporters, including Cameron, for the incident. "It's been a difficult journey, but I'm growing," he tweeted. However, some supporters weren't convinced and instead applauded him for acknowledging his mistakes, while others claimed it was merely a ruse to regain the respect he had lost from actual men. "Exceed when they're wrong, but that doesn't change the fact that the harm has been done and that we won't forget what happened," one fan wrote. Jim and the contradictory reactions only fuel the fires. Despite the drama and public division, there was a feeling that the conclusion was inevitable. But with Dipset's permanent cut looming over everything, the crucial question remained. Was this the end for one of the most well-known hip-hop groups ever? According to some sources, Cameron and Jim Jones had not spoken for days. Supporters disagreed, with some stating that a reunion would only take place if certain conditions were met. Some felt deceived, but others maintained faith in the group's power and the bond that had bound them together for years. Their loyalty was totally destroyed. However, according to Jules Santana, who always had people close to him, Jules, who acted as a mediator between the two, was both hurt and enraged over the entire situation. He had been working to keep Jim and Cam on good terms for a long time, and now it seemed like all of that work was failing, yet he was still frustrated. Jules was determined to make things right since he knew that the first step toward any chance of reconciliation was for him to take matters into his own hands. Jim Jones was working alone to arrange a private meeting that he believed was required. Face-to-face, no more enigmatic phone calls or letters. It has to be sincere. After a few nervous days, Julie was able to get Cameron and Jim Jones together. For the first time. It was a historic moment because Julie was willing to do whatever it took to save Dipset. Jim Jones, who was known for his quick wit and caustic tongue, was unusually quiet but more candid when they finally got down to chat after the altercation. He had been thinking about the consequences of his actions and was ready to face the room was filled with an uneasy silence as the two guys sat. The weight of their history and present consequences is toweringly enormous in the background, opposite each other. With a steady voice and a distinct edge, Cameron broke the silence. "Jim, started out slowly. You treated me disrespectfully. In front of wounded family members and fans, and I never thought I'd be sitting here with you after what happened." "Jones, June," he said, clearly pained, "I know and I can't take it back, but I'm here now and I want to make things right. I'm sorry, Cam. I want this to be over." Before responding, Cameron stopped for a considerable amount of time, possibly weighing his options. "Jim, you brought that up previously, but it was clear that they were still very hurt and distrustful of one another. However, as the discussion progressed, there were moments when it seemed like they could patch things up. They laughed and reminisced about their shared history, which included Dipset's heyday as a top rap artist. For a little moment, it appeared as though they were once more collaborating to produce magic in the studio, but reality soon set in and caused damage to be done, making it difficult for fans to recoup in the interim. Suspense was killing Jim Jones and Cameron, and we're still waiting for them to speak publicly. They wanted to know if Dipset was really over or if the two could get back together. Fans expressed their desire for an update on social media, writing, "We need to know what's going on." "You both hurt the fans," retorted one fan. "You must now inquire if Dipset was over." The pressure was increasing, and this needed to be resolved. Finally, Cameron and Jim Jones could no longer hide forever. Cameron made a quick but powerful Instagram post. Jim Jones did the same, "We've been through a lot, and we'll figure it out. The strongest bonds are occasionally tested. We're stronger. But we've been down too long," he stated in a sincere address. Then this stays with us since these messages didn't give followers clear answers that gave them hope that maybe Dipset wasn't done yet. However, the query remained. Could the supporters pardon them for the altercation they publicly displayed? And the agreement? Or was it too late and too little? Cameron and Jim Jones went too far, damaging the organization severely. The hip-hop community closely monitored Cameron and Jim Jones as the story unfolded, so while things will become clearer in the coming days, for now, everything was unclear. Together, two icons who once ruled the rap landscape were now fighting to preserve their legacy. Was debt really over, or would they succeed, men? When the Backstage brawl gained widespread attention, the hip-hop business was completely upended. Cameron and Jim Jones, two founding members of the well-known fan, there was a violent conflict between media outlets and the group Dipset that no one could have predicted. When the details of the fight were revealed, even their industry peers were taken aback. A fun-filled evening quickly turned into chaos, and it seemed as if Dipset's future was in jeopardy. It was stated that the altercation backstage quickly became out of control because unresolved issues between the two artists had been mentioned for years. Following that, there was a violent brawl that led to Cameron's arrest. The circumstances surrounding Jim Jones' subsequent arrest were described as intense, with witnesses claiming that both rappers were punching each other and making an inevitable spectacle. By the time that security had to step in, the damage had already been done. In addition to having a long-lasting impact on the event, the altercation left spectators wondering if the two renowned individuals could ever heal their fractured relationship in the days that followed. The brawl's reason began to spread like wildfire, with some people saying it was a personal attack. Although there was disagreement between the two, some people believed that the organization was dealing with more significant issues. After this violent public outburst, the fans who had previously seen Cameron and Jim Jones, who had been brothers in arms, were left wondering if they would ever be able to retain the loyalty that had previously defined Dipset Reconnect, or if this was the final straw that would put an end to the group's legacy forever. Even so, some fans remained hopeful, while others took to social media to express their disapproval, saying things like, "Veteran, this is the end of an era that was the greatest, but what chance do we have if they can't even get along?" People were trying to understand the sudden collapse of one of hip-hop's most prominent figures, Cameron and Jim Jones, who had been the faces of the most powerful factions for years of Dipset, and now their conflict was tarnishing everything they owned. Positive Cameron never shied away from controversy and handled the situation. He expressed his frustration on social media in a series of comments, stating that even though he had tried to maintain harmony, the treaty he had to go through was too much to ignore. "Some people will never change. Said, I did my part, but it's time to move on when you have to constantly watch your back." Even though Cameron's letter seemed to suggest that Jim Jones wasn't ready to give up just yet, his harsh comments seemed to confirm the general fear that Dip as a group was no longer a viable organization. Despite his clearly elevated emotions, Han took on a more subdued manner. "There may be a potential for a reconciliation," he remarked on social media. He said, "I'm not yet ready to leave," saying, "We've experienced too much together to let one argument define us." His remarks offered supporters who remained confident in his and Cameron's friendship hope that the two titans could work out a way to put aside their differences and resume their common past. Or was there no way to fix the situation? The media began to comment as events developed, with some outlets taking sides. Many people questioned whether this public fight was a temporary setback or an irreversible fracture in their comments on the drama from other unbiased hip-hop news sources, podcasts, and blogs. The timing of the tragedy was particularly worrisome because Dipset had been preparing to go on a reunion tour, which fans had been eagerly awaiting for years. And now it seemed as if the dream was disappearing in a unique manner. Interview Jules Santana, who was often at the center of Cameron and Jim Jones's debates, discussed this situation. He expressed his frustration by claiming that he had done everything he could to keep the two men amicable, but that both men had clearly reached their breaking points. "We were brothers. Man Julian spoke from the heart, but sometimes things don't go as planned. People change, and I can't force something that isn't there anymore." His remarks encapsulated the tragic and unavoidable essence of life. Dipset had been a family under the circumstances, but it now seemed as though that family was as a result. Cameron and Jim Jones were under more stress, and the public's response to the altercation became more intense. Their fan following was divided. Some expressed anger and disappointment, while others stayed. One fan wrote on Instagram, "We need Dip to sit back together," in the hopes of finding a solution, adding, "They were the best. Do not allow this to be your final moment." However, it became increasingly clear over time that this wasn't a minor dispute and that there were more pressing issues at hand that couldn't be easily ignored. Feelings of betrayal and hidden hatred began to surface from what had once been Jim Jones and Cameron's battle to deal with the aftermath of having to face their personal demons and old grudges during the battle. It seemed that egotism and misunderstandings were causing a fraternity founded on trust and loyalty to fall apart. Even the most optimistic supporters began to see that finding a way back would not be easy. As things continued to deteriorate in the days that followed, to lose hope, there were rumors going around about Dipset's future. Some stories claimed that Cameron had already started writing new songs without Jim Jones. However, there were rumors that he was considering going solo, which neither rapper confirmed nor denied. However, it was clear that the group's future remained uncertain. Fans realized over time that Dipset was no longer the powerful force it once was. "There are times when you have to let go," Cameron said in a statement confirming that their business relationship was over after Jim Jones and Cameron both posted enigmatic comments on social media. "Even though love is still there, it's time to move on." A similar statement was shared by Jim Jones. Although admirers were devastated, they also acknowledged that Dipset was no longer a group for them, since sometimes acting on their statements is more essential than being correct. Even though Cameron and Jim Jones had previously been inseparable, their battle showed that even the strongest bonds could be broken, and for Dipset fans, it was the end. The fallout from the altercation backstage had been catastrophic. During a period full of memorable events, avant-garde music had an undeniable cultural influence, but after the chapter on Dipset finished, one question remained. The future of Cameron and Jim Jones' reconciliation is uncertain, but for the time being, it appears that Dipset has had enough of the emotional roller coaster. The backstage fight between Cameron and Jim Jones has fans in disbelief, and with all the drama, betrayals, and heartbreak, Dipset isn't sure what to do. Do you believe that Cameron and Jim Jones will ever reconcile, or is this the last goodbye? Kindly provide your thoughts in the space provided for comments below. Remember to watch this video and hit the subscribe button for more breaking news if the unexpected turn of events surprised you. We will notify you of any updates regarding Cameron. The future of Jim Jones and Dipset. You won't want to miss anything that happens next if you genuinely adore Dipset. To make sure you don't miss any delicious updates, click the notification bell. Proceed with the conversation. Play this video for your friends, and until we meet again, let's talk about what happened. Return often for more drama updates and more. You won't want to pass on this entertainment industry buzz.